Connection to soil. Yeah, I mean, I'm not I don't have a background in farming, but got drawn into it for all sorts of reasons, and certainly, got really excited about growing veg, and I mean, it's a stereotype, isn't it? But getting my hands in the soil, was a good experience, and just the magic of things like growing potatoes when you sort of plant your seed potatoes and then just sort of dig out this gold from the soil. So I suppose just becoming aware of it as a kind of living breathing skin. We've always grown organically and not used too much in the way of toxic soil amendments, so it's great. I love working through the seasons and just seeing all the different animals, seeing the wolf spiders and and with their egg sacs in the spring, and the sort of, well, some of the insects in the soil are less welcome than others, but just being aware of the life in the soil, and trying to build up. We've got cropland and grassland on our holding, so I don't always feel like I pay as much attention to it as I should, but I like the sort of, over the years, trying to build up the organic matter and the tilth of the soil in the cropland, and then just feeling like the grassland soil is protected, sort of, and in the woodlands too, and just seeing mushroom rings, and just, it's an ever-changing sort of ever-changing reality. It's a funny one, because I guess I come from quite a sort of political background where I'm, people talk about, the soil of the nation and so on, and I always feel I question that, I sort of, I don't feel, I feel emotionally connected. There's aspects of, living in Britain or the West Country that I like, but I don't feel this kind of emotional connection to the soil as part of a sort of political story. The politics is more in food and community and so on, and I feel a connection to the soil, kind of as I was saying earlier. The sort of biological side of it interests me. It is interesting. It's like a sort of limestone area where we are, and so we find lots of fossils, lots of ancient seashells and different qualities of the soil across the site. So it kind of feels like there is an emotional aspect to feeling like you're part of this much bigger story that's written in the soil, and also the shorter term story of the things that we've tried to do on the site. But yeah, I don't feel a kind of, maybe less so than someone who's lived in one place or grown up on a farm or a farm background. I don't feel a kind of immediate emotional connection to the soil in the way that people sometimes talk about it. Yeah. In the days when I was the main grower in our market garden, I my hands would be like really gritty and sort of rough, as particularly at this sort of time of year there was something that I kind of liked about that. I liked the fact that there was kind of soil ground into all the indentations on my fingers. It just felt like it sort of felt honest in some certain sort of way, and there's kind of an integrity about it, it's funny, isn't it? Because I don't think about it all that much day to day, but when you sometimes, if you just stand there and you're just aware of this thin skin of the earth that we're so dependent on, and that we and that we don't think about enough. I mean, it does, it does draw you back into sort of feeling some kind of connection. Yeah. I mean, one of my grandfathers was he was a coal miner, but also a very, very avid gardener. He had an allotment up in Yorkshire, about an acre, and he grew. He developed a new potato variety and sold all sorts of vegetables and so on. And I remember the story of him, after the war, choosing. He would play hooky from work, and it's almost the sort of, he could have gone down the coal mine or he could have gone to his allotment. And I just think, what you would always want to go to the allotment, and so he obviously had a very deep relationship to plants and growing. But then I think my parents' generation, they did grow some they did do a little bit of veg gardening as I was growing up, but it was almost like that generation lost, it was almost like sort of post-war economic development, high tech farming. I don't think there was much connection to the soil really in my parents, particularly, and I guess I only came to it through kind of an intellectual route, thinking about climate change and the food system and so on. But I think my kids, they haven't totally grown up on the farm for because of the way that we've come to this, but I think they have. I think it's been more part of their background to their lives that all this stuff is important, and quite a sort of biological mindset they all have about how plants and animals and the soil and the atmosphere are all connected. So and yeah, I do think generally young people now are more keyed into that than my generation or my parents' generation. So that's a real source of hope for me, I think. I don't know, do I chat to them? I don't know. I do. I wouldn't say I chat to them, but I do sometimes stop and yeah, it's more a question of watching and witnessing, just particularly when you're on your own, just sort of silently. I remember I was lying on the soil once, and the barn owl flew right over my head looking down, and it was this amazing sort of moment of feeling sort of on the soil with this creature above, and like our eyes kind of interacting, so yeah, I love those. I mean, I'd like to seek them out more. It's one thing there's a lot of nature in my life, I guess, but it feels like still not enough, and I still, like a sort of busy modern human, I've got too much kind of narrative in my head the whole time, and I would actually like to bring more of that sort of just trying to interact and feel what's going on in my life would be good. Yeah, it was good. Actually, the soil I was lying on was a pile of topsoil that we'd dug out to make our track, and we'd sown like a wildflower mix onto it, which had grown pretty well. So it actually felt, I don't know, all sorts of kind of weird feelings, that it was in some sense wasted topsoil that we'd sort of dragged out industrially, but also it was quite wild and had all these wonderful flowers. And it was just a nice sunny day, lying on my back looking at the sky, feeling the sort of feeling the roughness of the soil beneath. So yeah, it was good. Yeah, really good. There's a lot more thinking and talking about this now, just knowledge of all the life in the soil, and fungal life, microbial, and bigger creatures. So I suppose to be aware of how much we rely, big organisms like humans, how much we are sitting on the top of this pyramid of life of which we're a part, and that doesn't necessarily, there's any number of different ways that we can work with or treat the soil, but it's good just to have that in mind, that it's that it's this huge vital living mass, I guess.